or seasoning you put in. Now, it does take a fair amount of salt, because when you think about this, it's just water and vegetables and some salt and nothing really else. Okay, but you can get away with using a little bit less salt and seasoning if you use more vegetables. Also, the more vegetables you use, that's going to like determine the thickness. That together with the amount of water that you add from the beginning. So I almost always, and this is 100% of the time, I use a fair amount of onions. If I'm doing, like, let's say 5 or 6 cups at home, I will probably use 2 onions. These are huge onions. This is half an onion, so if you think of the other half, that's like a pretty good size. And this is 3 onions. Now this pot is going to be bigger than what you would make at home probably, but when you make it, generally the recommendation for pureed sweet vegetable soup is just like twice a week for those of you who are recommended to have that. And what I'll do after I get this on, I'll talk about like what this is good for and energetically, why you would choose to have pureed sweet vegetable soup. In between there, I'm going to show you how to cut. There we go. See Sally with her feet. Okay. The reason I turn the flame on first is just because when you have a larger pot with these little portable things, if you put a heavy pot on top of it and you turn the flame on, for those of you who have these at home and use them, the gas can shoot out this way and that's not very safe. So I always try to turn the flame on first and then put the pot on. Like that. So right now, if you can see in the mirror, there's just a fair amount of water. There's onions like up to here, and I have the water right there. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook a little bit of the yin aspect off of the onions first. So when you start off like this, it's going to make the dish a little bit stronger, have a little bit more vitality to it, but it's going to bring out more sweet flavor in the onion. So we start off with that, just a little bit of water. And the onion, the way that's cut is, it was peeled and then cut in half, and this is the other half. Now this outer portion of the onion here, can you see how there's a little bit of green hue to it? Mm-hmm. If I were to peel this off, so now everybody can have onion hands, and let's just like circulate that around. If you look at this, it's kind of very flimsy. That's not going to be very good quality vegetable. So if you think, you're wasting something, you're really not. You're just like throwing part of the vegetable away. It can be composted, so in that way it's not a waste. It goes back to the earth and helps to make your garden lovely, but it's just very flimsy. It's not going to be very good. Make sure this is turned up as high. So then when I do a dicing, I do the dicing very similar to the way I cut half moons. I don't do that chef's cut where you go here, 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 and then flip it over here, here, here. Personally, don't find that to be a very neat cut. I find that to be inconsistent and sloppy. So I like to cut between like that. I quarter it first, and then instead of working from this round side, I'm generally always working from the flat side like this. I'm going to flip that over, that's a little bit more steady. So you can just, like that, making half moons first. And if you look at this, they're even. This isn't that significant when you're making a longer soup like that, but it will be significant if you're doing something like fried rice or like adding sauteed onions to like a bean dish or something like that. Then everything, all the onions, if they're cut consistently, they'll cook more in a consistent manner. So all the time that you take to do this, it may look meticulous now, but really in the end you're going to get a better result. Your dish will turn out better and things will cook more evenly. It's going to taste better. Then I just take this, you can either stack them up like this or not. I adjust for the roundness. Can you guys see that? Now it's tilted, but if you look at this, it's pretty, that's mainly onion. It's like a piece of shell or something. And you can see it's starting to form little bubbles there, so it's ready to begin cooking. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till it starts to give off a little bit of a yellowish cast. So I don't know if you can see that in the mirror. That it's changing from white color, that it's beginning to give off that yellowish cast. So I'm still waiting till it comes to a boil, till I give it its first salt. When I make a pureed sweet vegetable soup, I salt twice from the beginning. A little bit of salt with the onions, then I add the other vegetables, I add more water, then I generous with salt. That way, the salt has time to cook in and integrate with the vegetables, and again, it's bringing out the natural sweet taste of the vegetables. You'll get the seasoning in there, but at the end, the finish of the soup, it shouldn't be like really salty, so you get like mild sweetness out of it. So oftentimes, like when people salt at the end, then the first hit that you get is more of a salt hit rather than like the sweetness of the actual vegetable. And it's going to taste more sweet as it cools down. If it's too hot, then it's not going to taste as sweet.
So you put more salt in the end or in the beginning when you salt it twice?
When I salt it twice,
Yeah.
I put more salt after the rest of the vegetables go in. I'll show you from beginning to
Okay.
end. I'm going to grab me the measuring spoons and I'll try and see.
So you don't.
Gosh, if I can see that. This is an 1/8 teaspoon, so only do one of those guys. Yeah. My bigger pinches are about an 1/8 teaspoon. My smaller ones that I use for rice are usually about a 1/16. 2, 3, so that's good. And again, this is more than you probably be making. So what's 3/8? Carol, you're the math one. What is?
What 3/8 is 3/8?
I have 3/8 of a teaspoon.
It's between 1/4 and a half.
So between 1/4 and a half you're leaving in there for 3 onions. And those 3 onions, that was probably 4 cups of diced vegetables. Okay? So now we have that in there.
How many are you cooking for now?
That would probably serve like at least 8 people, maybe 10 servings, something like that. It's deceiving. It's a bigger pot than what it seems to be.
So we would never use that much salt if we were just cooking for 1 or 2 days?
No, you would probably just use like
Right.
an 1/8 teaspoon.
Yeah.
Because you would be making, if you're making it for your family, so there are 4 of you, so actually, yeah, this would be good for you guys. Because then you could have it 2 days in a row. That's like almost perfect,
Okay.
right? For people that are doing 2, then if you did probably like 4 cups of water to start off with would be like perfect for like 2 people. And then if you did that, then just like kind of cut the seasoning amount in half. Somebody take good notes on this, will you? And I want that. Okay, this is the cauliflower. We have half of it here, so we left the little leaves on just to show you. We thought that sometimes cauliflower can be a little tricky. The way you do this, I go about this by peeling these outermost leaves, and then I cut into the bottom. And I just kind of make little X's on the bottom like that. And then this very easily breaks apart. So the same if you were maybe blanching vegetables to put in a vegetable tray or something like that, or if you were putting it in a blanch salad, you can very easily just take that apart like that. Or maybe if you're just like sauteing broccoli or frying broccoli, cauliflower. I eliminated parsnip from the recipe because sometimes parsnips can be a little bit too strong, and they have like that strong perfumey taste. Other times they're just really sweet. I think right now they're getting a little bit more strong tasting. Sometimes I've done this particular soup with rutabaga too, or the bottoms of a leek. I choose the bottoms of the leek because they're really nice and sweet, but if you do the tops, then it gets that green cast of the hue. So sometimes I've used the bottom, and then at the end I like water saute the other leeks, or maybe even oil saute the leeks, and you can add that towards the end too, and it's very pretty. Just measuring, and then we'll know. So what I'll do is I'll tell you how much. Yeah, at least 4 cups of water in there right now. You have 2 types of soups, first of all, okay? You have your savory soups, which are more activating and strengthening to your digestive system. Can anybody mention any savory soups? What's the most
Miso.
common one?
Miso.
Right, exactly, miso soup. And then miso soup has a lot of different varieties, from more heartier miso soups, where the vegetables are sauteed, and then even heartier, where it's sauteed and then the miso's like boiled a little bit, like kimpira soups, or there's grain vegetable miso soup, where a little grain simmered in there. Also koi cuckoo, like the entire fish soup in burdock and carrot,
Is that like?
or burdock carrot, like carp soup, or sometimes red snapper, or I've done fish soups with trout like that, done in the pressure cooker, that's seasoned with miso. So that's still considered, like a type of miso soup, a special type of miso soup. So that's like the most hearty of all the miso soups. That's savory, deeply strengthening to the digestive system.
The bean soups be included in there?
Bean soups kind of like go either way. They can fall in between. Some bean soups, if they tend to be more savory, more salty in taste, then I would call them a more savory soup. If they're more sweet in taste, like a lot of split pea soups, I think they have a more sweet taste to them, and they're more creamy. So the more creamy soups, then I would say lend to more similar to that of the pureed sweet vegetable soup. And a lot of those creamy bean soups, you're using a fair amount of onion or other vegetables together with the bean, again, to get like that creamy texture and the sweetness out of there. So it just depends on what type of vegetables you're using, even more so than the bean, what type of vegetables and the quantity of vegetables that you're adding together with the bean. So then the other type of soups are the sweet vegetable soups, and especially the pureed sweet vegetable soups. Pureed sweet vegetable soups, first of all, the savory soups are generally seasoned with miso or a combination of salt and shoyu, but significantly more shoyu. And that's how I differentiate. So this is according to Susan's definition here. Pureed sweet vegetable soups, I season predominantly more with salt as opposed to shoyu. I do use a little bit of shoyu at the end, but it's not always necessary. Sometimes I do that more for an energetic effect. The purpose of pureed sweet vegetable soup is to relax the central organs here, particularly the pancreas. So you learned in hypoglycemia class last month that the pancreas is the most deeply central located organ of all the central organs here. It's like the deepest organ. And from past animal food, hard baked things, salty foods, salty fishes, salty cheeses, this can become tight and hard. Within the macrobiotic diet, if you're using too much salt, if you're using too much seaweed, if you're eating probably way too many grains for years and concentrating on all this yang food all together with like baked foods, or use of too many salty condiments, all those foods within the macrobiotic diet, they're part of the standard diet, but they can also perpetuate that condition of hypoglycemia, making the pancreas more hard. So the cure are things like pureed sweet vegetable soups, which relax and open the pancreas. Also sweet vegetable drink, as we learned, right? Also light, fresh things like blanched vegetable salad, quick sauteed things, sweet vegetables, and then good quality sweets in the form of desserts, but soft sweets.